And I'm going to focus on the electrical aspects of the grid and of the networked grid here. And so just electrically, to sort of think about, you'll have a transmission lines coming into the area station. I'm not showing them here, but imagine you have high voltage, 138 kilovolt or 345 kilovolt lines coming into the station. These would be underground if you're in the city. Coming out of that station, again underground, are 13 kilovolt feeders that go out into the street. And then there's a transformer, which I'm showing by this little blue box, and what we call a network protector, what's shown by the purple box. And on the downstream side of that transformer and the network protector, there's what we call the 120-208 system, and that's the voltage that you have that you plug into in your home. And coming off of that is the services that go, for most customers, go directly into your house. So you can have a building that comes right off that grid, which is shown up on the right, commercial or residential. And for a very large customer, I would say above maybe 2 megawatt size, you may have feeders, these blue feeders that are dedicated to that building, dedicated transformers, dedicated network protectors, and then so the transformation happens to this 120-208 or 460 volt distribution system at that larger complex. Well, the reason for the network protectors is to protect the system. If there's a fault on a feeder, say that the insulation is damaged, or there's some water intrusion, or two feeders touch each other inside of a manhole, you'll have a fault. You'll have a lot of energy then going towards that fault. All the electricity in the system will tend to go towards the fault. And when that happens, there'll be a high voltage, high current at the substation. And that'll open a breaker here, which prevents more energy coming from the substation into that line. And then any flow that goes backwards through that network protector is designed to disconnect that feeder. So now that feeder is not energized. There's no more current flowing through it, and and the rest of the system is able to deliver energy to the rest of the customers. The design basis for this is that two of these feeders on the hottest day of the year can be out of service and still supply all of the load in that network. And so when we do upgrades into the system for expected increases in load, it's to make sure that we meet this design basis, what we call N-2, two major components out of service to still supply the load for this network. But a key piece of this design is that those network protectors will open if there's any flow going backwards. And so if you install generation at the customer side, you can be pushing energy back out into the network. And you can open those network protectors. And in the case of the large building over here on the right, if you open the network protectors, you've interrupted the supply from Con Edison to that building. So there's something that our engineers have to figure out a way to manage around, or that the generation that's being installed there makes sure that doesn't happen. And there's fairly basic technologies that can deal with making sure that those don't open. And what we're beginning to see is technologies that will actually allow some amount of export through those networks protectors with the ability to operate those from the control room. But these are the challenges that we see. Again, going right out into the network, you could have something that we call islanding, where you have a generator disconnected from Con Ed, supplying some of the nearby loads. And if this network protector closes in, you could have some pretty catastrophic failures of equipment because they're out of phase, they're not synchronized. And so that's Distribution Electric System 101. So you come to Con Edison, you're interested in installing a generator. We'll look at the electric, and you probably will need additional gas supply. And we'll need to make sure that there's gas available, or let you know there may be a cost for getting that gas available. We look at the design. There's an ongoing discussion with the engineers, and then we'll also talk if there's charges there might be some cost associated with connecting the generator. We'll test it, and then once everything's good, you'll go on the standby rate unless you're exempt from the standby rate, technology dependent. And then that generator becomes part of our, it goes into our planning process, and we review its operations, and we have some visibility into how it's operating. And I have 5 minutes left, so I'm probably not going to talk about rates, Tom, unless you want me to spend more time on it. You and I can talk about rates. But I just wanted to let you know that NYSERDA has additional incentives now in areas that are in our 10-year load relief plan, so areas where we would otherwise have to do upgrades to our system. If there's generation, there's enough generation sites in those areas, then that can defer some of those projects we might have to do. So NYSERDA is providing additional incentives for CHP that locates in those regions. This is just showing the southern part of Manhattan, but there are networks like this in the other boroughs as well.